Jane created this presentation because Jane's been working in the recruitment, as a recruitment agent for over 30 years, actually more of a consultant than an agent, because she works with the clients, and she devised this presentation tailored to you, and that being emerging artists and designers. So she was thinking very much from your perspective, but homing in on what she knows from the industry. And the good thing to say with Jane is that she has placed designers from all over the planet. She works with clients both sides of the Atlantic. So, I would say Europe and America is her focus. She's done a little bit in Asia, but more Europe and Asia, Europe and America. But yeah, she's represented Balkan designers as well. A good example, Sasha Vidakovic is a good example. She placed Sasha years ago, after Interbrand, before he set up his own agency, and so she's very comfortable in it. So she's thought from your perspective. So Katie, should we get started?
Oh, I just wanted to add also, Alex hasn't mentioned it, but Alex has also worked in recruitment. So yeah, so Alex also has a lot of knowledge in this area.
That's a very good point, because that's how I know Jane. So I worked with her. I headed up the fashion textile division, which was based in Boston in the States, and I worked between Boston, New York, Hong Kong, London, and various other parts of the planet. But that's going back a bit. But to be honest with you, not a lot's changed. It's still recruitment is recruitment, agency is agency. It's developed a little bit, but it's quite similar what it was when I was doing it 16, 17 years ago. So yeah, no, that's a really good point, Katie. Should we kick in?
Next slide, please, Yelena. Okay.
Well, this kind of speaks volumes, doesn't it? Really.
Mm.
Yeah. Shall I kick off with this, or do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll do the first thing. So, yeah, I mean, it is very interesting in the fact that we've noticed that, for example, when students leave university, often it's not necessarily the ones who get the star grades who are the ones that are the most successful. And so here again, the best designer doesn't always get the job, because it can be about lots of other features. So it's talent, but also there's lots of other skills that you need to succeed in the industry. And also a lot of it is about, are you right for that job? So
yeah, no, just to add to that, it's a very valid point. I think that we're not just looking at students graduating, we're looking at, obviously, other individuals on the call today that haven't necessarily studied. But I think the way you've got to look at it is that the client has got something specific in mind, and sometimes it's about taste, it's about the right fit for the organization. So a bit like what I remember talking about yesterday, where I thought I was right for a particular brand, and I clearly wasn't. This is the thing. This is a very good example of that. In that, if the client, we unfortunately don't know what the brand is always looking for. Okay, they might have something specific requirement. They might be changing direction. They might be looking for someone who you think, well, wait a minute, I'm absolutely tailored to these people. But you don't know that they might have just hired a new design manager who has got a completely different aesthetic to what can we sorry, that threw me off really fit. But there's a lot to this. So timing comes into play. It really is. There's a lot of luck involved, but the other thing as well, right? Very, very importantly, that people forget is that you can have the best portfolio, the best work, but if they don't like you, you're not going to get the job. The personality comes into play, right? So there isn't just about the work and the portfolio. If that person is going to be sitting with you and traveling around various parts of the world, because that's what goes on in the creative industry, and they don't, you don't, they can't see you sitting next to them on a plane for 8 hours because they, oh, I don't even want to sit next to this person. You're not going to get the job. Now that sounds really, but that's the way it is, because put yourself in the shoes of the individual who's hiring and think, well, yeah, if we don't connect, we might, there might even be, I got a job years ago because of my love of football. I went for an interview to show my portfolio. All this guy wanted to talk about was football to me. And I thought, what the hell's going on here? I've either got the job or he just wants to talk football like he is down around the corner in some pub. So it's really, there's a lot to it. Personality comes into play as well as the work. So there's so much to it, Katie, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. I mean, as Alex said, it's about these soft skills as well. So, you can have somebody who's amazingly talented, but if they haven't got the skills to communicate that or work well with colleagues, then they're not necessarily going to get that job, or they'll be perfect for doing something else. But the soft skills are also really important in the creative industries.
When Katie mentioned soft skills, because not everyone might know
Oh,
really
yes.
what that is, right? So what I would say is presenting your work, communicating your work, um, going back to soft skills, communication, knowing what's going on in the market, being au fait with what's happening around the world, even that that is really important, because that's connection. Okay, so don't just think it's about the work. The work is the door opener, because they obviously don't know your personality when they've never met you. But when you get in there, you've got to keep your foot in the door. If that's the company that you'd like to work with, or it could be a curation, it could be an exhibition. That connection is incredibly important. So there's a lot to it, and and there's a lot of people out there fighting for the same position as well. So don't beat yourself up. I mean, nobody walks into a job and gets it immediately. I don't know anyone who's got a 100% success rate going for an interview and getting a job. I mean, I'd love to meet one, because it's highly unlikely. Can we go to the next slide,
Yeah,
please?
next slide, please.
Casey?
Yeah, so what you're really entering, so this is talking about, following on from what Alex was saying, is that these industries are actually, although we think the design industry is massive, actually once you break it down into its smaller component parts, very sort of targeted and niche, actually it's amazing how many people know each other and they and interconnect. So you will find that after a while that you will understand this system better. And then, so there's a small connected industries. We're talking here about economies that may be unstable. I mean, again, I think, at the moment that's probably as unstable as it's been for quite a while, in that any kind of uncertainty makes hirers very nervous and jittery.
Yeah.
Worrying about what will happen in the future. They're more likely to think, oh, well, let's leave it for 6 months, let's leave it for a year, and then we'll maybe hire someone. So again, that's also a part market. And then market with limited budgets, again, when people are starting to try to conserve their funds, what they're doing is often saying, okay, well, we might just have a freelancer, maybe we'll have a freelancer for 2 days instead of 4 days. But it's thinking about how you can actually work within these limits.
I mean, just to add to that, that's very relatable, both Katie and I, at the minute, because we haven't had a sponsor for the Global Grad Show this year. And so we haven't got the budget to go out and employ freelancers like we were last year. So, you're restricted at what you've got in the pot. So there's certain brands out there that, from the outside might look really successful, but believe me, because I'm talking to a lot of them and have been talking to a lot of them because I'm trying to get sponsorship money out of them. They're making redundancies right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's not necessarily a bad thing for a junior designer, for example. That there can be opportunities for the junior designers and the junior, the artists, um, in a climate which might seem, um, all over the shop. I mean, genuinely, the market is not great, but it's not doom and gloom either. That there is brands on the up, and this is the thing. This is where it's really important you do your research, and the beauty of neither Katie or I or Maya or Yolana, back in the day, we didn't have this luxury of the web, right? The web brings everything to you. There is no excuse. You can find out who's doing well by, you know, using AI, using your chat GPT. You can find out, I'm not saying that it's all historically correct because it's not, but it leads in. You can ask it questions, it can feed you back information, you can delve deeper and think who is doing well in the market, who is on the lookout for the younger generation. Are Gen Z more important than, 45, 50-year-old designers? So these sort of things you can do. We never had that. We had the yellow pages. Hopefully they might pick up the phone or look at my CV back in the day. I mean, it's a lot easier than it was in that respect. So you got to use the tools that are available. Anyway, so we move on to the next slide.
Next slide, please.
How opportunities actually happen. Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Jobs are shared privately. Um, yeah, recommendation. I mean, this sound a lot of this might seem really obvious. It's really obvious, some of it, right? In that, if someone they might reach out to the local college, they might put an advert in the local newspaper, but often the case, and we do it. I always ask people who I rate, oh, can you recommend anyone? So that your network is big, and the reason why that happens, I mean, it might be common sense, really, but the bottom dollar is reliability, and this is where we're heading. With people hire those they trust. They might not know that creative, but they might know someone who's hired that person in the past, or can recommend that person, and yeah, it leads beautifully on the reputation, because the more reliable, the more the fact that you deliver consistent. It might even be just little. It might be logos. It might be renderings. It might be making whatever it may be. It doesn't actually matter what that is. The fact of the matter is, people will always historically, always historically, for centuries, forget even about creative. People will always, if you're looking for a plumber, if you're looking for an electrician that's not going to blow your house up, you're going to ask someone who's going to recommend someone, right? So a lot of this is obvious, right? But you need to try and be in that. You need to be that person that's being recommended, that is reliable, that does deliver, that does turn up on time. Yeah. So those things are really massive.
Yeah, Alex is right. We cannot it's really hard to underestimate how much this concept of reliability, turning up on time, doing what you say you're going to do, send the emails when you say you're going to say, is so important. I've heard so many times people say, well, I've got these two candidates. This one, the work's probably, I find their work a little bit more exciting, but the other one, Mr. or Mrs. Reliable, and you go with the reliable one, because also a lot of these people have got busy lives, and they think, oh, this person's going to make my life easy. They're just going to do everything on time. I don't have to worry about it. I can leave the work, go home, enjoy my evening. I don't have to worry.
I know it's in the inbox when they get in. And
Yeah.
this is it. And actually, I can say this now. We've hired people like that, where there's been people who think, right, amazing, but will they deliver on time when we need it? Because if they don't, we're in the mess. So these are the factors. If we can move to the next slide, please. Oh, there we go. Well, some of this is already.
Yeah, we've already touched on quite a lot of these things. So we've talked about being reliable, showing up consistently. We've talked about, and then there's also internships, obviously very important to build your CV and also build up those soft skills like what's it like working in an office, what's it like communicating with people within a design team, and assisting on projects. So that again, that could be a bit like an internship, or it could just be a separate project. But all of that experience is really valuable.
Just to add to this, I didn't walk straight into a job when I graduated, right? So I I I was open to anything genuinely. I mean, I thought, right, well, and I had friends who were turning down opportunities and thought, are you mad? You know, do something relevant than nothing at all. Um, you know, don't the people who succeed in the industry and the people who you'll see the judges that we've got the global grad show, the global creative directors, some of the biggest brands on the planet, from Apple and Meta to Nike, you name it. Why? These people have got there. I can honestly say the majority of them are really nice people. And so that says to me, right, that those people have probably got their feet on the ground, have been that one person that's been hungry, who's gone for it. I'll give you an example. There's a guy called Lee Holman. He runs the whole of Tommy Hilfiger globally. He used to work on the shop floor for Next in Somerset. Now I think, well, where the hell is Somerset? Somerset is a very small little county in England, not high employment. It's not like London and Buckingham Palace and all that. We're talking about proper. A lot of people unemployed. He
Rural.
so he's worked his way from that shop floor to go to night school to get a degree to take the first gig. I know what gig he got first. I wouldn't even mention it. It wasn't a good brand, but he was building a portfolio, and that passion, that hunger, you get there. Alexander McQueen, he used to cut for a rag trade company that used to produce for Topshop. It wasn't great. So you see this guy who's like, was the most famous bloody fashion designer probably the last 20 years. He was cutting garments for just a small high street retail at one stage, right? So don't be proud. If you've got an opportunity, get a break, get that experience, because it could be the best thing you've ever done. Yeah. Um.
Next
Anyway,
slide.
yeah. Next slide. Sorry.
Okay. So these are some of the barriers to entry with conservative clients. So clients that are not interested in, maybe you might turn up and got traditional aesthetics and resistance to change. So you might turn up with some fantastic ecological ideas, and they're like, oh no, that's too advanced for us. But as it says here, your skill is knowing when to push, when to add innovation, and when to adapt, when to get the job approved. I mean, some of this borders on a question of morals, or how you see yourself, how much you're prepared to maybe lower your aesthetic or ecological barriers to get the work. But there always will be this resistance to change, because as Alex, one of Alex spoke, a lot of clients, they're like sheep. They will follow other people, so they will follow the crowd.
It's awful, right? Because
Mm.
you know, oh hey, look, the world's a bloody mess, right? And it's just this word sustainability, it's overused, right? And got these brands that say that they're not sustainable. Some of these brands, I know they're not. They're not working ethically either. And I mean, but to have models and have principles and to try and do the right thing, don't ever deviate from that, right? But sometimes you got to work with it, and then think, right, okay, I can't do this. I've been there. I've resigned from opportunities and jobs that were paying well, but I, I I didn't like the way they were operating. But unfortunately, when you need a break, you sometimes you got to compromise. And I'm not saying that that's if you've got the luxury where you don't need the money, that's different. But we've got to pay the bills, but never, ever, ever stay true, right? Always stay true to yourself, your principles, and know that, right, okay, I'm going to try and make a difference, but sometimes I'm going to have to try and educate these people, right, to make that happen. But sometimes it's a big ask, and I hate to say it, but it's just the truth, because you need to know this, because sometimes you've got to compromise to pay your bills, right? So just please take that on board, but stay true to yourself, because that's very, very, very valuable, and you never have regrets in life. Okay, so that's I
Yeah.
think that's enough for that one. Yeah.
Okay, next slide, please. Adapting without losing yourself. So actually, this follows on from what we've just been talking about the fact that you don't always have creative control, and you have to follow direction. But as Alex was saying, you need to be true to yourself. But at the same time, there may be moments where you might have to, you need to pay your bills. But so the goal is to deliver what works and build your voice slowly. I think, again, maybe also when you are a emerging creative, you do have a little bit more choice, I suppose, than when you get further along, where you might only be offered 2 or 3 options, whereas at the moment you've got a wider choice to build your voice.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing as well, I mean, when I was in the recruitment game, I'd recommend to certain individuals who weren't happy where they were, but had a family to feed, to work on their own projects. Okay, so you know, I knew the capabilities of some of these designers, but they'd become like very I mean, example, they might be designing for Disney, right? Because it was well paid, but they have this amazing work, and think, right, okay, well, that's what you really want to be doing, you know. But the fact that you've got people want to employ people who are in work, right? And that's the other thing. That's something I need you to know. When people are out of work, they go, why are they out of work? Now, don't get me wrong. When you're emerging, that's different, right? But when you've got 5 years under your belt of experience and you're out of work, they go, well, why are you out of work? Is that because you're unreliable? Like, are you not easy to work with? So these factors, do not underestimate what people think, because unfortunately, people judge because they don't know those people. So just but don't deviate from what you really want to do, but you've got to compromise, and that's the bottom dollar. Every designer, every artist I know compromises. An artist, I cannot tell you how many amazing and fine artists that we've come across who get a commission from a gallery, and they might be working on a project they really don't like, but they've got to do it because it pays, and then they can do their other work and sell the other work, and hopefully build a reputation by doing other work, and think, right, I'll never do that again. But there's a compromise, because money pays bills, pays the mortgage, all these factors. So you've got to balance everything. It's yin and yang, right?
Yin and yang. Okay, next slide, please, Yelena. Who has the power? Yeah. So this is quite interesting. So, for example, if you're emerging creative, you may go to a talent agency, or you may send your CV to the talent acquisition team of a big company, and these are the gatekeepers. So these will look at your CV. They will possibly look also at your portfolio, and then decide whether they think you're good enough to be put in front of the actual the creatives who will actually look at your work. So this is the first hurdle that you need to get through.
Yeah, that's really frustrating. Yeah.
Mm.
I know it because I've been that person for quite a few years, and you've been that gatekeeper because you got to understand that if it's a, you know, a big brand, for example, like I don't know, like a Levi or something like that, or a Philips, um, they get inundated. So, and when I say inundate, they get loads and loads of CVs, and it's like a lot of noise, and they just haven't got the time. They genuinely, they could spend all day looking at CVs and work every day, right? And they'll never get their job done. So that, as you can imagine, you've got to delegate. So they delegate, and they delegate it sometimes to an in-house recruiter, talent acquisition guy, HR, or an agent who is like a, you know, a talent agent, which is kind of what I was doing. And I would have to filter. So I'd have to go through, and I might get 200 people applying for a job, and then I've got to narrow that down to 10 people. So that's tough. Okay. Because sometimes you've never even met the person. They could be lovely, and there might be a perfect fit psychologically, and their work looks good, but there might be other work that it's really, that's where the look of the draw comes into play as well, right? Spelling mistakes. I would genuinely throw a CV in the bin with a spelling mistake because they'd already failed the first test. So there's things that are quite ruthless, but you have to have an eye for detail. You've got to understand that there is a process, and no one on this planet who is running a big brand could possibly go through every application. It is impossible. It's impossible. The bigger the brand, the harder it is to. You just haven't got the time of day to do things like that. So you've got to delegate to other people who might not even have your aesthetic. So just bear that in mind. These are the challenges. These are the things you're up against. Buyers, my first full-time job, I had a I had a row with the buyer at a retailer called Marks and Spencer's way back. We fell out. You know, I didn't like the fact that the buyer kept on changing my design. Actually went back to the original design, which I'd already done like 3 weeks earlier. I had a stand-up row. Basically, I got sacked. Okay. This is what we're up against. Sometimes you just got to button your lip, not say.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Just to also say that these days we now with a lot of people wanting you to upload online. So you whatever you do, make sure that whatever they ask, whether it's like, oh, this CV's got to be no more than 2 pages, or this PDF's got to be 5, make sure you keep within the limits and you do exactly how they want it. Because as Alex said earlier, if you deviate from that, they'll probably just end up in the bin.
To test. To test. It's
Yeah,
like the person's not reading what I'm actually saying. They, well, wait a minute. How can I rely on someone? You know, when if I, you know, give the keys to the office and I go away for 2 weeks and come back, and you know all the computers are being stolen because the door was wide open. It's we're talking about that, right? You failed the test, right? So these little things could become big things, right? So you know, it's that whole thing that could keep. It's a lot of repetition here, actually, at times.
yeah. Next slide.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, knowing your value. Yeah, this talks about underselling yourself, accepting poor treatment, staying silent, and remembering your time is valuable and your skills have a value. So we've touched on this earlier, where it also comes to ideas of morals as well. So I think again, it's finding this balance, but also understanding that, you know, you're not a doormat. You know, they're not sort of just allowed to sort of walk all over you. So you have to sort of stand up for yourself at times.
Yeah, now the other thing as well is now underselling yourself. Now, just one thing I would query here is sometimes if it's a small company, they might not be able to afford €200, right? Now, so just bear in mind that, you know, if it's a bigger company that's making a lot of money, then that €200 is nothing to them. Okay. But, you know, it could be the equivalent of €50 for a small little company. And it's like, well, what you should do is like think about, well, I'm not doing anything. It's a really interesting brief. It'll go in my portfolio. I'm not saying that you should do it for something like that price. I'm not. But what I'm saying is if they're very small or they're only
Or
starting up.
maybe they're very interesting, Alex. Maybe it's a really interesting project.
Yeah,
Like,
and actually it could go to bigger things. So just be very open, but try and work out the individual. Try and work out, think, right, okay, I really like this person. I don't think they're gonna let me down. They might give me more work. So your gut, your heart, and your head tells you something sometimes, right? If your gut's saying, "Nah, I'm not sure about this person," then but that's down to you. It's you've got to try and judge people a little bit yourself as well, right? But um, yeah, staying silent. Um, I probably should have stayed silent, right, in that meeting, right? That looking back on it, because then I had no job and I had bills to pay. So just think, sometimes you might have, this burning desire to explode when someone's telling you to change something. I think there's nothing wrong with it, but sometimes just they say here in the UK, button your lip, as in just keep your mouth shut, right?
yeah, true.
But don't put up with poor treatment, right? People who are clearly, doing something wrong. There has to be a line that people don't cross, right? So these are factors to factor in. The next
The
slide, please.
slide, please. Oh, yeah. So we've actually touched on this already. So this is
Yeah,
talking about what are your boundaries, not working for free for the long term, clear expectations, boundaries. I think we can move to the next slide, Alex, don't you? We've
yeah,
touched on this. Next slide, Eleanor. Ah, yes. Now, this is actually a really, really important slide and one to remember is that people do change direction, and that's good, and that's interesting, and that's fun. Careers are not linear. You go and do a degree in one subject, one creative subject. That that's all perfectly fine, and actually it's fun if you and that's how, especially now, how people's careers will be. They won't be linear. They'll be, yeah, moving in different directions.
just to add to that, there was somebody on the call yesterday who might be on the call now, and I think if I'm not mistaken, they might have been doing computer science or were a computer
That's
scientist
right, yes.
creative. That is a great example. Okay, Nick gave the example of the postman being the artist. Okay, I'm an example in that I kept on getting sacked as a designer because I didn't like being told what to do, and suddenly I became a marketing person because clearly I prefer communicating than being told what to do as a designer. So these things that are, the beauty of creativity. If you've got a creative mind, you can diversify. Okay, you probably have got an opinion. Okay, so it's such a valid point. You study a subject, it might be completely irrelevant to what you're going to be doing in 5 years' time. Okay, so don't think that this is the way I'm going to be. This is what I'm going to be doing. When I'm 35. No, you're not. It's highly unlikely that you're going to be doing what you think you're going to be doing in 10 years' time or whatever it is. So that's that. So yeah,
Okay,
next
next
slide,
slide,
please.
please. So yeah, so the first job gives you skills, experiences, and contacts, but as it says here, it may not give you a high salary, creative freedom, and recognition. So I think we've already touched on this. So
We
let's
did.
let's
We've done. The only thing is, though, we haven't really touched on it completely because if there's an opportunity to be learning a package, it could be even Photoshop, Illustrator, it could be Chloe, it could be whatever the package, right? It doesn't matter. And that company might be offering you an opportunity and think, well, wait a minute, I haven't got those, and they're gonna pay me to learn systems that I am not au
that's
fait with. That cannot be underestimated. That's actually a good investment. Okay, so weigh that up. Yeah, to learn skills that you might not necessarily have today and get paid for it, that that's pretty handy. Okay, because that can lead to a higher salary because you're you've got the expertise now, you're faster on, you know, whatever the package may be. So that's all I would add to that. Next slide, please.
Ask where will I learn the most. So whether this is going to be from mentors who will give you feedback, real projects, so and feedback. So again, I think this is probably going back to the previous slide. It's looking at, as Alex said, you know, about the fact that if you go to a company and they teach you to use a particular software, then that you're actually learning a lot. So I think that's because sometimes you might think, oh, this company's got a brilliant reputation, I should go there, but that's not great if all you're doing is like making the tea and doing something very menial.
Before. Next slide,
Yeah.
because look at the time, Katie. I've had a message from Maya saying you're taking too long. Not you. But...
Yeah. So jobs versus freelance versus starting out. So these are different options, whether you have an agency job, so full-time job, freelance, or starting your own company. So these are different.
We're fine with it.
Next. And creativity and professionalism. So I think we've touched on this already. So you need creativity, reliability, which we've talked about, and communication skills. And these are really the three things that
communicating by email. So, you know, when you've had a conversation with a company, with a client, with a curator, whoever it may be, you should go straight back to them after that meeting and confirm your understanding, because you'll forget it the next day. So you should do that. That's professionalism. And that goes along with it, right? Okay, I'm really impressed with this person. They've come straight back to me off the back of the meeting. Thank me for my time. And these are the things that they understand. That is absolutely massively important. Okay, next slide. Oh, that's it. Thank you.